menopause or perimenopause starts when you start to get fluctuations in your hormone levels. Often the first signs of this are things like periods being a little bit erratic. So you might find that you're flooding a lot more than maybe you did, or you're very weak, light period, and then you might have a kind of absence of periods, or they might be, sometimes they're every 2 weeks, sometimes they're every 6, and you really don't know what's going on. That's kind of the start of the whole shebang. But there are other things that come along with that. So, you may experience hot flashes. You may start feeling much more anxious than you have done before. You may start finding that you don't know where you are. You can't remember the words. You go into a room to ask for something, and for the life of you can't remember what it was. Or you're in the middle of a sentence and the word you were about to use has disappeared into thin air. And you're kind of going, oh, gosh, now what? These are all things that might be happening. And the reason for this is your hormones are fluctuating. So perimenopause is the time when we go from having regular estrogen and progesterone coming into our system through our ovaries, and gradually over this period of time, the ovaries are we're born with the number of eggs we're going to have. Let's just put it that way. So we've only got a finite number of eggs in our ovaries, and during this period of perimenopause, the release of the ovaries and the growth of the eggs within the ovaries and the hormone that generates is fluctuating because you're running out of eggs. And menopause is 12 months after you've used your last egg up, basically. So we're putting it nice and simply. So one of the things you can do is get a follicle stimulating hormone test, an FSH test. They're erratic. So if you go to your GP and they do an FSH test and say, oh, no, that level's fine, you're not in perimenopause, or that level's low, you are. So it's not that reliable, because it's a hormone that's released when the ovaries aren't giving you enough estrogen. So it's a way of balancing that out. But sometimes your ovaries are in overdrive and you've got huge amounts of estrogen. So it might say, oh, you haven't got much FSH, you're fine, you're not in perimenopause. But you are, it's just that they're in cycle. Or you might, prior to being in perimenopause, be within your cycle where your levels of estrogen are quite low. So there's more FSH. And equally, that doesn't mean you are in perimenopause. So the clinical testing is harder. So GPs will go on symptoms, presenting symptoms and descriptions. And they can support it with the blood test, but just be aware of the caveat on that.